evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful evening to find out about the 9 common mistakes first-time homebuyers make. Today's webinar is being hosted by KPA Lawyers here in Mississauga, Ontario. And with us today is Brian Wiley, a mortgage broker with We Are Mortgages, and Lambros Demos, a real estate agent with Royal LePage, both of whom service the GTA and surrounding areas. As for myself, my name is Barbara Kaye, and I practice solely in the area of residential real estate law. Just a quick tidbit about KPA Lawyers before we get into it. We are a full-service litigation firm with amazing civil and family law teams. We also practice criminal law, personal injury law, corporate commercial law, and as you probably guessed, real estate law. At this time, we have also suspended consultation fees. So if you have a legal matter that you need to speak with a lawyer about, just know that we are ready and able to assist you. Now, as a matter of housekeeping, please know that we will be taking a few questions during the presentation with a designated Q&A portion at the end. Pardon me, if you have a question that is not answered or is related to one of our topics, please post it in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or raise your hand to ask your question over speaker. We will not be answering questions posted in the chat group. Lastly, we will be recording this webinar for your convenience. So before we begin, we have a poll for all of you to complete. It is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We would love to know when you plan to buy your home. Now that we have that out of the way, I am going to hand the reins over to Brian Wiley.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much, Barbara. Okay, so thank you for joining us. We have worked with hundreds and hundreds of first-time homebuyers, and it seems that the same mistakes keep coming up over and over again. And so that's why we put this together. There's a lot more than 9 mistakes, but these are 9 very important mistakes that Lambros, Barbara, and myself see on a daily basis. So I'm gonna jump right into it. I am the mortgage broker. Number 1 is not understanding the difference between a deposit and a down payment. So I'm gonna paint a picture for you here. I'm just gonna use a $500,000 property. And let's just assume you have a $100,000 down payment. Now, typically, when you have purchased that property and you have a firm sale agreement, within 24 hours, you are supposed to show up with your deposit. And let's just say that deposit, for this example, is $25,000. That $25,000 is given within 24 hours, so you need to make sure you have access to it. And now, what's cool is that $25,000 then becomes part of your down payment. It flows right through the process. So in that example I used of $100,000 was your down payment, $75,000 is left outstanding plus closing costs. The remainder of those funds are not due until, give or take, about a week before closing. You will have a certified check made and you will go in to see your lawyer. Your lawyer, Barbara, will have that exact number for you. And that's what the certified check will be. Okay, so there's a distinct difference there. Now let's say that you were putting the 5% down, which is the minimum to buy your first property, and frankly, anybody can take advantage of. But in that example, if you gave a $25,000 deposit and your down payment was going to be $25,000, you'd be done. The only thing outstanding would be your closing costs, okay, which are then due a week before closing, okay? Now, another piece of here, the last piece with the down payment, and this is a big thing not a lot of people know or understand, but the minimum down payment is 5%. You do not need 5% down. First-time home buyers can buy with 5%. The general public can buy with 5%. You can also buy with 0 down. So as long as you can borrow those funds and the lender, the bank deems that you can handle the carrying costs, you technically can buy a property with 0 down, okay? Okay, mistake number 2. So this is a big one. So clients come to us all the time and they say, Ryan, what is the most that we can be pre-approved for? And my answer is always this. It's one thing for us to find the maximum amount. It's another thing for you to afford it. And so we prefer to reverse engineer things. So we would ask you, we would do some personal budgeting with you. And we would say, based on the rent you're paying now or funds that you're saving, what are you comfortable paying ongoing after you buy your property? So we'd sort of build out a range. So that range could be, let's just say $1,800 to $2,100. And that range needs to include your mortgage payment, your property taxes, and condo fees if applicable. So we'll take that range based on your own comfort level that you already know, because you already have your own personal budget figured out. And then we'll ask you what your down payment is. And once we have those 2 variables, it's a math equation from there. The purchase price dictates itself. And so that's sort of where we start. So now we've got that purchase price that we know you can afford based on your down payment and your budget. And now we need to make sure you can qualify for it. And so to make sure you can qualify for it, we have to do a deeper dive. We have to look under the hood. And we have to do a deep enough dive to know that when it comes time to putting offers in, you've got a lot of confidence, you can put that offer in, and that you're going to be able to execute with financing. So that's when we start pulling personal credit. We start looking at income documents, your T1 generals, notice of assessment, pay stub, letter of employment. It seems like a lot of work up front, but at the end of the day, it's going to save you a lot of time and stress down the road. And so the budget on the screen here, this is an example of what we do. I'm not going to walk you through line by line here, but I just wanted to show you how intricate the budgeting can get. And so it's good for you to know your monthly exposure from a down payment and closing costs perspective, and also what your monthly exposure is going to be after you close on the property. So in these examples here, we used a 5% down. The property is in Toronto. This is for a first-time home buyer. So we sort of outline all of the closing costs. Now, these closing costs aren't going to be exact, but it's going to give you a really good idea so there's no surprises down the road. Okay? So that's number 2. Now, number 3, not having a dream team. So I see this all too often. This is a big, big mistake. So imagine there's this big easy button and it's sitting there, and all you have to do is press it, and then you get instant access to years and years and decades of experience. And you get to leverage all those people's relationships. Well, that's what we've got. So we consider ourselves the dream team. We've got Lambros, Barbara, and myself. We all have each other's cell numbers. We all pick up the phone. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that you're just not privy to. And we don't want you to be. We want this experience to be enjoyable. We want it to be stress-free as much as possible. And so having the right dream team in place and being able to leverage our relationships, and everyone that comes into this process, we've all personally vetted. So this is invaluable. And putting that dream team in place is something you need to do ASAP. Okay? So those are my 3. We've got 6 more mistakes. I'm going to hand this over to Lambros. Lambros, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Great information there. Thanks for sharing all that. Thank you, Barbara, as well. And thank you to everyone who's on the call tonight. I see we've got a good crowd out there. If there are any, frontline workers on the call, a special thank you to you goes out as well for all your tireless and selfless work that you're doing to make sure the rest of us are safe. So with that said, I just want to follow up on Ryan's point a little bit about assembling a dream team and why it's so important to engage the services of a realtor specifically early on in the hunt for a house. So by far the biggest mistake home buyers make when they embark on their search for a home is to not engage the services of a realtor early. In some cases, they don't want to bother their agent, or they just want to look online or go to open houses, etc. Well, pre-COVID anyway, since there are no open houses going on right now. But the problem is buyers don't know what they don't know. And this applies to so many facets of the home buying search, whether it's early or midstream. So a realtor can offer a wealth of information. So first of all, they can save you time, right? And allow you to search more efficiently. If we just want to back up there, Barbara, just we'll focus. Yeah, that's perfect. Just to allow you to search more efficiently. For example, I mentioned open houses earlier. Well, not all homes for sale have open houses when we did have open houses, and I'm sure when they come back, it'll be the same thing. So it is a very inefficient way to look for a house. Another example is when they want to search online themselves. I mean, that's great. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, I encourage my buyer clients to do so. But do it as a complement to the more thorough search that your agent can provide. And where you look online is also a huge consideration, because there are so many websites out there, and most of them are not up to date. I can't tell you how many times my clients have, sent me a listing, say, oh, I like this one, or hey, can we see that one? And then when I dig a little deeper, I discover that it has either sold, or it maybe has 15 offers on it, etc. And now they have feelings of frustration and disappointment because they put too much expectation on discovering a home online on their own. A good realtor will be on the ball, sending them relevant listings in real time as they hit the market. and can also filter out the ones that aren't available anymore. I haven't even mentioned the exclusive listings, the ones that are not on MLS and therefore not on the public website. For example, I belong to an exclusive network of approximately 30,000 agents, which is more than half of those in the GTA. And we share listings, which for one reason or another, the seller doesn't want it on MLS. These days, it's usually COVID related, as sellers are not keen on having too many people walk through their homes, only the serious ones. So the other and probably most important reason why you should have your own agent early is you need someone to look out for you. So you want someone in your corner. Right? This is, again, some buyers think, oh, I'll just ask the listing agent to show me the property. And I can actually do a whole webinar on why that's not a good idea. But to keep it succinct, the listing agent works for the seller. They have one job, and that job is to get the best price and the best deal for the seller, not the buyer. Some people think they will save money by going through the listing agent because now they don't have to pay a commission to the buyer's agent. And again, there's so much here that buyers don't know what they don't know, how commissions work, for example, and what agreement is in place with the seller. But to get back to my point, when you go to a car dealership to buy a car and you're dealing with the salesperson, that salesperson works for the dealer. Same idea here. You need someone to work for you, to negotiate on your behalf. And some people think they can negotiate themselves, which is fine. I mean, I'm sure they can, and they're good negotiators. But think about this. How many houses does an average person buy and sell in a lifetime? We could do a poll on this. 3, 5, 10? Some of the top agents sell that in a month. So we negotiate every single day. This is what we do for a living. So trying to hold your own against an experienced real estate negotiator is like stepping into the ring with Mike Tyson because you've watched all the Rocky movies and now you're feeling pretty confident, right? So, and of course, last point is it's free, right? We don't pay anything to your agent. They get paid from the listing side. So if someone wants more information about that, as I said, I would be happy to discuss it offline because there's so much here that we can get into, but I don't want to take up the entire webinar. Moving on, next slide. Needs versus wants. So this is also important. And what I mean by this is sometimes buyers have a hard time narrowing down their search. And maybe this is why they like to start on their own. So it kind of ties in with my first point. This is where a good realtor can help you determine what is really important to you and things you can't live without and what you may be able to compromise on. So it may sound silly, but I've had buyers turn down a home because they didn't like the color of the walls or the cabinets in the kitchen. Location is another factor. Sometimes buyers tell me, hey, it doesn't matter where they move to. They're open to different areas. The problem with that is now you're dealing with far too many listings. The opposite is also true. They may zoom in on such a small area that the selection is simply not there. An experienced realtor can help you prioritize your needs and wants and fine-tune your search so that you have a reasonable number of choices. We do this by asking the right questions and working with you on your wish list. Another mistake home buyers make, whether they are first timers or not, is placing too much emphasis on the asking price. So, Barb, if you want to just change this. Oh, there we go. Okay, so too much focus on asking price. This is a big one as well. And it's not only first-time home buyers that make this mistake. So if you want to just click on the next slide, the asking price is simply that, something the sellers are asking for. It is not a base to start from, and it certainly does not represent market value, although it can. To be frank, sometimes sellers are out to lunch with respect to pricing their homes, so it might be way over the asking price. Way over market value. Or other times it may be under market value as strategically sellers and agents price it in such a way to generate bidding wars or multiple offers. So how do you know? Right? How do you know if it's priced at, above, or below? Well, this is where your realtor comes in. A realtor can do the proper research in your neighborhood, look at comparable sales and say, you know what, this is my opinion as to what you should be offering and how much the house is worth, right? So let me give you an example. A buyer sees a house listed at $800,000, but it needs some work, right? In their estimation, it needs about $50,000 worth of renovations. So they offer $750,000. The problem is that house, they've already taken the deficiencies into consideration and they've priced it accordingly. They've actually priced it low and it ends up selling for $850,000. So bottom line is don't rely on the asking price to determine market value. And with that, I will hand it over to Barbara.
Thank you, Lambros. So both Ryan and Lambros have referred to your need to obtain a dream team, and in both instances, it's good to engage them early in the process. This is also true for your real estate lawyer. So accordingly, the first mistake I find purchasers make is signing the agreement of purchase and sale without legal advice. Now, this is not always possible depending on the situation. Having said that though, I do always recommend that you try to have your lawyer review the agreement. At the end of the day, you are signing a legally binding contract with legal consequences, and you are better served by speaking about your contract with a lawyer. Your real estate lawyer can review the agreement and identify clauses that may be uncertain or need amendment, as well as explain the legal implications of these clauses. I have had purchaser clients come to me with a signed resale agreement where they had no idea what the implication of a clause was, or a clause didn't adequately factor in considerations that should have been outlined. One such example of this is a clause where the seller had the option to postpone closing. That's all it said. Now, who would be responsible for the costs associated with postponing closing wasn't mentioned. It wasn't stated whether the statement of adjustments for the transaction would be adjusted. And in this instance, as a purchaser, maybe you hired movers or would not have a place to live with postponed closing. What are you going to do with your things? These are all costs and factors that should be accounted for in these clauses and can go unnoticed in the rush of signing an agreement. So those examples are things I have seen in resale agreements. If you are dealing with a new build contract, you're buying from a builder, the agreements can be quite extensive and contain several clauses and costs that you can actually negotiate. So after signing, you will have a designated time period to have your lawyer review that agreement, and I highly recommend you get that agreement to your lawyer as soon as possible. Now, I am always asked, why do I need to hire a lawyer? So beyond the requirement to have a lawyer affect the transaction by actually registering your transfer and charge, at the end of the day, your real estate lawyer wants to ensure that the agreement you have protects you and does not create an opportunity for litigation. So really, your lawyer has no skin in the game. All we want to do is protect you, which is why it's good to get in there early and have a lawyer look at that agreement so you know exactly what you're signing. All right, so that is the first one. Okay, my second mistake first-time home buyers make is miscalculating closing costs. So I know I had a question earlier about what actually goes into closing costs. As you can see here, I've outlined a few things. There is the legal fee, disbursements, home insurance, title insurance, HST on some of those items, and land transfer tax. So to simplify this immensely and state the obvious, the purchase of your home will cost more than just the purchase price less your deposit. You need to factor in these items. Now, if you are buying a new build, the adjustments that you see or the adjustments that you'll see in a transaction will be far more complicated than that in a resale agreement. But if you speak with a lawyer prior to doing this, you can actually cap you can cap those costs and help yourself in the long run. So with regards to factoring in the legal fee, it really depends on who you hire and where you are located. With home insurance, that's something you usually need to acquire to appease your mortgage lender. And with title insurance, that does depend on how much your mortgage is and what the purchase price of the property is. HST is also added to your legal fee and disbursements. Now, another component to disbursements is registration costs. This will be typically the $75 that is for your transfer and for the charge. Now, as for land transfer tax, I am not going to go into how it is calculated as that information is readily available online, but I will refer you to KPA's land transfer tax calculator. You have to pay land transfer tax whenever you acquire an interest in land or a beneficial interest in land. So I'm just going to show you here. Bear with me for a moment. So what we have here is KPA's land transfer tax calculator. This beautiful machine was created by Ryan Keeney. He's one of the partners at the firm. He's the K in KPA. So here you can see that if you're purchasing a home for, say, $550,000 and the property is not located in Toronto, you'll see that the Ontario land transfer tax attributed to that property is $7,475. Now, if you are a first-time home buyer, you would select yes, and it would show you that the max rebate eligible to you is $4,000. So that would give you that nice deduction, and your total land transfer taxes would be $3,475. Now, if the property is located in Toronto, you're going to have that duplication. So you have in Ontario, the Ontario land transfer tax and the provincial or municipal land transfer tax. So what you see here is the calculation is the same for both. You just add them on, and your rebate available to you for the Ontario land transfer tax, the max is $4,000, and the max rebate available to you for the municipal land transfer tax is $4,475. So you see how that factors in here. I highly recommend you check out this website. It's very helpful. Okay, so whether you are eligible for the land transfer tax rebate, I have the requirements for you here. You have to be at least 18 years of age and a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada. You will have to occupy that home as your principal residence within 9 months of closing. And you cannot have owned an eligible home or an interest in an eligible home anywhere in the world at any time. Now, an eligible home is pretty much any home that's being sold in an agreement of purchase sale after 2017. So it applies. If you have a spouse and your spouse has not owned an eligible home or had any interest in an eligible home anywhere in the world while he or she is being your spouse, then you both will be entitled to receive that rebate. Now, should your spouse no longer be eligible for the first time home buyer's rebate, but you are, the refund will be proportionate to the interest acquired by you when you take title. How you can handle this is something that I recommend you speak with your real estate lawyer about. All right. So the next mistake I have is what to do on closing day. So the biggest thing that I find with people is that, yes, it's exciting, closing's happening, you're going to buy your new home, and it's a great day. But there are still some things that you need to manage on that day, namely expectations and some things that I highly recommend you do. So one expectation I tell first-time home buyers to kind of reduce is the chance that they may not be able to get the keys to the property until closer to 5 p.m. So if movers are being hired, you need to account for this. Something that I encourage all buyers to do as well on closing when they take possession is to go around the home and property to double check that everything included in the agreement of purchase sale is in fact present in the home and working. So if the agreement says everything is in good and working condition and you wait to check until a few days later when you run the washing machine, for instance, and it doesn't work, it becomes harder for your lawyer to say that you didn't actually damage it because you have had possession of the home for a few days. Now, if you checked it on closing day, there would be no question that you didn't damage the items. They came that way. Now, as for items you expect to be included in your purchase of a home, you need to look to paragraphs 4 and 5 of your agreements. I've had clients enter their new home to find the seller had removed items that were supposed to be left in the home. So paragraphs 4 and 5 of the agreement disclose chattels to be included in the purchase price and the fixtures to be excluded from the purchase price. So to wind that up a little bit, chattel is something that is movable and can be removed without damaging the property, whereas a fixture is something that is affixed or attached to the property and removing it would or could cause damage. So an example of a chattel would be a dishwasher, fridge, microwave, washer, dryer, curtains. Examples, fixtures would be blinds, curtain rods, light fixtures, TV wall mounts, that sort of thing. So if you enter the home to find items that were included in the purchase price missing or items not working, you can contact your lawyer to ensure it gets handled accordingly. In some instances, you can even be reimbursed for the cost to you to repair or replace these things. So the main lesson to learn from this, though, is making sure your agreement of purchase and sale is clear. So this will be your guiding document throughout the transaction. So if it's unclear or has contradictory clauses, that does increase the risk of misinterpretation, argument, and potentially litigation. All right. So having said all that, Ryan, Lambros, and I would like to address any questions you might have that were not answered. If you have a question, please post it in the Q&A or raise your hand to ask us a question over Zoom. We'd love to hear you ask your questions. Just nice to know that there's some people out there. All right.
Okay, I see a bunch of questions here. I'm going to jump in on one here. There's sort of two questions in one. So the question being, do we need to have a credit history of 2 years to get a first house? And also, can you shed more light on the 0 down payment that was mentioned and how does it work? So the short answer for the credit history is no. You can get a home with, there are lenders that are borrowing on this with 12 months. You will need 2 trade records. That means 2 forms of credit for 12 months with no missed payments. That's if you're going in with the 0 or 5% down. Okay. If you're going in with a little more than that, then your credit history can be a little lower. And if you're also new to Canada, you can get away with as little as 1 month credit history. Okay. Because there's other ways to validate that you have credit worthiness. And so the second part of that question was, what is the 0 down payment? Can I shed light on that? So it works like this. If you need $25,000, if that's the down payment you require, the 5% mark in that example I used of $500,000, you can borrow those funds. Now, those funds have to be borrowed from your own resources and they have to be documented. So you can either have them gifted from an immediate family member, which you may or may not have to pay back behind the scenes. But if you borrow off of a line of credit, a loan, an RSP loan, credit cards, we've had clients do that. I'm not saying that's a good scenario, but you can borrow those funds. So then what the lender does is they look at the cost to carry that loan payment, the $25,000 loan, and they put that into your debt servicing ratios. So in their words, they just make sure that you can afford that. And if you can, in their opinion, by their guidelines, then you're essentially buying that home with 0% down. Okay. So I hope that answered, that should answer the question.
Perfect. Mind if I just jump in here and
Absolutely.
tackle, I think we'll just go in order, just make it a little bit easier for everybody here. So I think the first question here is, as most of the countries are going towards recession, is it suggested to invest into a house immediately, or should we wait till the end of the year to get the best deal? Well, it's from an anonymous attendee, so I'm not sure, and that's fine too. I'm just going to say that nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody can predict what's going to happen. So at the end of the year, the situation may be better. The situation might be worse, right? We don't know. All we know is what's happening now, and we can look at the numbers right now. I actually just put out a video today on my social media channels showing us how the market actually bottomed out in late March, early April. Since then, the number of showings and the number of offer registrations has gone up almost 100% month over month. So activity is picking up again. Buyers and sellers are getting more confident. They're wearing their masks and their gloves and they're going out. They're tired of sitting at home. We are seeing activity pick up again. I've had a number of calls this week of people who wanting to list their houses. So supply is coming back. Buyers are coming back. And when all that happens, guess what happens to prices? Now, prices are going to start elevating. So to think that prices are going to go down, who knows? I mean, nobody knows for sure, but chances are they've already hit the bottom and now they're on their way back up. So, I mean, I can't really answer that question to tell you when. Everybody says, don't try and time the market. You're never gonna get it right. So if you have the wherewithal and the means to buy right now, I suggest you go for it right now, because over the 50-year history that we've been keeping track of housing prices, it's a nice steady climb up. Yes, we've had some dips and some recessions, et cetera, but we've always come back. Especially here in the GTA, we have a remarkable ability to maintain value in our land and in our housing. So it's always a good idea to buy. Yeah.
And Lambros, I'm just going to pop in there on that. The 30-year average annual appreciation in the GTA NH, which is Hamilton, is 7.39%. So, we've got 3 decades of appreciation there.
Oh yeah.
Obviously that's not every year. Some years are 12 and 14 and some years are 1 and 2. Right. I just wanted to get the point across that you win when you buy real estate. Absolutely.
You buy and you hold. I mean, I'm a fan of long-term holding onto property and just letting it appreciate. And that's how a lot of the seniors these days, the baby boomers, are able to retire, because they bought a house, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and now they're sitting on a gold mine, right? So,
yeah, good point.
Okay, next question is, can you elaborate, I think a bit, they're trying to say here, can you elaborate a bit? This question is from MN regarding how commissions work. I think I touched on commissions in one of my slides, and I mentioned that the buyers don't necessarily know how commissions work, because there's a belief out there that all commissions are standard, or we all, work the same way, but that's not true. In fact, it's the opposite. Commissions are negotiable between the agent and the seller, right? So they can pay whatever they want. Sometimes they pay a flat fee. Sometimes they pay a percentage, whatever that percentage is. But that money is paid from the sale of the property, and that comes from the seller to the agent, and it's up to the agent to decide now what to do with that money. So to give it to a buyer who they don't know and they're not their clients, it's highly unlikely. If anything, they'll just give it back to the seller for giving them the business, and to keep good relations with that seller, so maybe they can refer them even more business. At least that's the way most agents work. So there's so many ways you can slice a commission, so that's why you can't always rely on that.
And I believe we also have someone with their hand up. Hello, Maria. Just on mute, so we'll see about getting that unmuted. Maria, you might need to unmute yourself on the bottom left.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. So I am in the process of purchasing a house, and because of COVID-19, it seems I'm having a hard time getting a mortgage. So I was previously pre-approved. Now I am getting like I'm going around. They want more and more paperwork from me. So it seems they're asking way too much information. And I just don't know when is to say enough, it's enough. Because at the end of the day, I am the one looking for a mortgage. So my question is, like, when do I say stop?
Okay, Maria, I'm going to jump in here because I think this is in my alley. Good question, by the way. So is the reason that they're asking more documentation, let me ask you this, are you still fully employed?
Yes, I am fully employed. So I have a co-signer, and we have different properties. In total, we have 4 properties. So, and they're asking the title of all the properties.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what happened here was at some point, they were always going to ask for this paperwork, because they do. There's a ton of paperwork. And with COVID-19 around, all lenders now have their audit departments breathing down their neck, and they're reopening. So let's just say you needed 20 pieces of paperwork up front and you thought you were finished. They are reopening a lot of mortgages before closing. An audit team's going in because of COVID-19, and they're saying, hey, we've got regulators breathing down our neck, so now we're going to breathe down your neck, and now we need another 6 forms of documentation. And so we're seeing that happen on a daily basis. I just tell you, please don't take it personally. You're borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's so much going on behind the scenes, and you're not alone. This is happening across the board. So please don't take it personally. But then I also wonder if the right amount of underwriting, the right amount of documents were actually requested up front. And that's what we do. We have an extensive list, and we ask for everything up front, so there are no surprises. I don't know your scenario, but that might have happened. If you used, I'm not sure who you used for that. If it was a broker, it was the banker. Sometimes they just don't ask for the right documents up front.
And yes, it was a broker, and I think that's exactly what happened. They did not ask the right documents. Actually, Friday, they asked for more documents. Are we closing on Thursday, this coming Thursday?
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah. And without knowing all the specifics, I hear this all the time, and I would just tell you, because you're so close to closing now, you got to put your head down. You got to grind through this. You're building something else here. You have co-signers and you have 4 properties. Kudos to you. So please put your patience pants on and grind through it, because it's going to be well worth it, and your kids' kids are going to thank you.
Right. Thank you so much.
Okay. You got it, Maria. Okay. We've got a bunch of questions here. So I think
Yes, we do.
I think we should hammer into these and boom, boom, boom. Try to give pretty quick responses, because we want to make sure we can get to everybody. So this first one, Barbara, this one's yours. Here's a softball for you.
So how much does it cost to hire a real estate lawyer? Okay, so it's not a simple legal fee plus disbursement plus HST. It's a flat fee for everyone. It's going to be different. So depending on the price of your home, that's going to change how much the legal fee is going to be. Depending on the type of lot it is, that's going to change the search requirements. Maybe it will require greater searches. If you have septic, there's going to need to be certificates on that, potability, water potability, that sort of thing. So I would say if you're purchasing a home and it's within, the greater Toronto area, it's a standard home, nothing too complicated, you're looking between $1,600 and $1,850. That's what I would place it. If there's any extenuating circumstances, it can go up from there. But that's where I'd place it, with a heavy caveat that it does vary.
Okay, good answer, Barbara. We have a next one here. I sort of answered this before. I'll touch on it very quickly. As a first-time home buyer, I was thinking of using a company that offers no money down option. What are the pros and cons of using this option? Hey, at the end of the day, if someone's willing, it's not a company. There's not a specific company that's going to borrow you the money. It is a bank. It is your family. It is, you're borrowing at your own resources. So my mindset is, if someone's going to lend me the money to buy a $500,000 asset or a $400,000 asset that's going to help change my life, you just do it. You borrow the money, you get it done, you get in the game, is what you need to do. So to answer that, it wasn't a specific company. It'll be the banks that'll borrow you the money. And there's zero cons, in my opinion. I think it's all pros. Okay. There's another one here. I'm just going to go in order here because this one's on me here. When it comes to RSP, what is the maximum that one can take out of their first home? This used to be $25,000. It might even still say that on CRA's website, unfortunately, but it is $35,000. I can confirm 110%. It is $35,000 per person. Okay.
Yep.
So I hope that answers it.
Let's see.
I can take the next one here. It kind of fits into my ballpark. So Lily is asking, most of your examples are with purchase prices around 500,000. I think she's referring to Ryan's or Barbara's examples. Is this realistic in the GTA for houses less than an hour from downtown Toronto? Well, I mean, certainly you can buy something around 500K mark, but it all depends what you're looking for. You can buy a condo, you can buy a condo townhouse. If you travel a little bit further north or further west, you can certainly buy a freehold property. It may need a little bit of work, and if you don't mind, getting a little dirty and fixing up something yourself, then yeah, you can buy something for 500K. But it goes back to what I was saying before about needs and wants, right? So what is it exactly that you're looking for, and what can you live with, what you can't live without, and compromise. So if you want to talk more about that, Lily, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to discuss more.
And we also have some raised hands, so we'll get that set up.
Sure.
It's like a radio show.
Yes. All right, Denise. Okay, so if you unmute yourself on the bottom left, that would be great.
Need the Jeopardy music here.
Yeah, Denise.
Denise.
Bottom left hand of the screen. You're gonna have to unmute yourself.
Why don't we tackle
maybe,
a question?
yeah,
while
maybe we'll
Denise is
come
doing
back to that. Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Okay, do you want me to pop in here?
Yes.
Okay, so next question we have is, I also have a student line of credit and whether it will have impacts when purchasing a property. Yeah, absolutely. It's just a matter of if it's going to impact you, because I don't know your personal situation, but how lenders look at student lines of credit, all lines of credit, credit card, any sort of unsecured debt is this. They take the amount that you have owing and they take 3% of that. And that is a monthly payment, like a car payment. So if you owe $10,000 on a student line of credit, even though your payment is going to be lower, they're going to put $300 in your liability section and use that against you. Okay. So depending on what your income is, that student line of credit may or may not impact you. Okay. Boom.
Okay.
Do we have someone coming on live?
Let's see. I know we had another hand raised. Maybe we can find out if Denise is ready or there was a second person.
No. Okay.
Nope.
All right.
Pop in here just because we got a ton. We got
Yeah.
a ton here. So, and I'm like Cinderella. I turned into a pumpkin here.
Lost a
okay. So it says, if we already have a down payment arranged, does it still make sense to opt for down payment via RSP? Okay, so that's sort of a loaded question. I'm going to try and give you a short answer here. But if you qualify as a first-time home buyer and you can take advantage of the money in RSP, then 9 times out of 10, I highly recommend it. Okay, I'd have to look at your personal situation. You can send me an email at ryan@wileymortgages.com and I will jump on a quick phone call and I will assess out your situation and see if that makes sense. But 9 times out of 10, it does. But that's a longer conversation. I don't want other people on here that it doesn't pertain to. So send me an email.
Excellent. I'll tackle this next question here. This is actually an excellent question. I wish I could know who's asking it so I can give them credit for it. But Anonymous is asking, since the buyer's real estate agent makes a commission as a percentage of the purchase price, how can I be sure the agent working on my behalf will get me the best deal? A lower purchase price means a lower commission for them. And absolutely, you're 100% right. The lower the purchase price goes, the lower the commission, of course. But 2 things here. Obviously, one, the percentage that it's going to go lower is negligible, right? So if a buyer's agent is going to save you $20,000, for example, on the purchase of a property, to them that's only a few $100 less in their pocket. So that shouldn't prevent somebody from doing their best to get you the best deal. And at the end of the day, your agent has to put their needs before their own. That's what we're supposed to do. We owe you fiduciary duties, we owe you loyalty, we owe you confidentiality. So there has to be that factor of trust. You know, that's why going to the listing agent is not necessarily the best deal, because that listing agent owes you nothing. Your agent, you have to have a trusting relationship with that person and know that, you know what, this guy or this gal is going to look out for me and put my interests ahead of theirs. That's just it.
Okay.
Scroll back up here.
So the first question is there a clear point where it'd be more beneficial to buy rather than rent?
Ooh.
So, I mean, I know from my perspective here, it's usually better, or it's beneficial to buy and pay your mortgage down because you're building equity in your home. But I feel like, Ryan, you might have some other comments on that as well.
Yeah, well, there's a difference here. Like, let's just say it's all about context and perspective. So if you're paying $800 a month in rent and enjoying a certain lifestyle that you like and putting $500 away savings, well, sure, that's a pretty good setup. You're not building generational wealth. You're not like, your net worth is not increasing, but you're paying $800 a month in rent. Now, if you're paying $2,000 a month in rent, that's a different conversation, because you could easily slot in, and there's creative ways to come up with that down payment, a payment pretty close to that $2,000 in a lot of situations. And then all of a sudden now the landlord has no more control. Right now, landlord can just tell you to move out when, within reason, or not renew your lease. And so you have to leave. You can put holes in the walls if you like, wherever you like. You don't have to worry about that. It's your home. And then the biggest thing with owning your own property is it's a tax-free savings. So us as Canadians have been conditioned to throw money into RSPs, and they serve a purpose to a point, but your house is a tax-free environment as well. And so if you have a $400,000 or $500,000 asset working for you and you're forced to pay down that mortgage, as Barbara recommended or mentioned, I say jump in. You do what you got to do to get in the game and get that property working for you.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add a little bit to what Ryan's saying there. Again, if you look over time, I'm not an expert on the stock market or anything like that, but buying a house, that's the best investment you can make. Real estate, in my opinion at least, and a number of other people's opinions, it's the best investment that you can make versus putting your money in the stock market, where it's quite volatile. And, if you compare it over the last 30 years, I think Ryan mentioned a number of 7.5% that it's gone up. Let's say it's even 5% that it's gone up consistently year over year. you're not going to get that, or it's going to be very difficult to get that in a stock market or mutual funds paying you, 0.5% or something like that on your money.
Absolutely. It's far less volatile. Yep. So we do have a hand up. I'll see if we can get that individual up here to ask a question. So it's Carol and Keaton. I get the last names or the second names cut off a bit, but if you guys could unmute yourself and ask your question, we're here for you. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you guys so much for doing this webinar.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Also, I work for long-term care homes and services. So I'm one of the essential workers out there.
Thank you.
Anyways, I had a really bad experience about 10 years ago where I purchased a property, and it was not a good deal, but I got into it. I was not able to take access of the property because of the financing. It was a really bad deal. So I had to file bankruptcy. Anyways, so I've gotten my credit back up, saving towards getting another property, but I am really like, every time I think about it, I hyperventilate because it wasn't a good experience the first time around. I would have to talk to you guys about that, but I got it wasn't a bank mortgage, it was a private mortgage, and the real estate person was the one who was selling the property, and he kind of forced it on me and my husband. We're big people, I understand, but somehow we took the bait. But I was the only one working. He had promised my husband some work, but it was just a bad deal altogether. What I wanted to ask, will I still be eligible for that rebate when I buy my next property?
So I'm going to go for this. So if the previous transaction didn't close, you were never registered as an owner, then technically you have never been a first-time home buyer in the past. So I would say, based off the information you've given me, that you would still be eligible for it.
It was closed. I signed the purchase agreement and had to pay everything.
So yeah, so
wasn't able to take access of the property. I wasn't able to move in.
So that's where I'm curious, because you have your signed agreement, and then it's separate to actually closing the deal. So your completion date, which is listed at the bottom of the agreement, will say we're set to close July 30th. Mm-hmm. If on July 30th that transfer is never registered, you didn't technically own that property.
You know what? So, I think I did own it because the mortgage person sued me because I actually didn't move in and I wasn't paying the mortgage because I couldn't afford to.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So Carol, why don't we could take this offline. I'd be happy to chat with you about this offline, just because it's very specific. So that way you and I can get through it further, and I'll get more information from you.
Okay, sure. No problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And now we have, Sandra.
Oh, Sandra. Hi, Sandra.
Thanks for hosting this. So I'm a new home buyer, and for my first home, I decided because my fiance is a real estate investor, so he gave me kind of a boost to purchase my first home as a triplex. Nice. So I found a good deal, and I would be moving into one of the units and then renting the other two. Just to know how safe I am, this is from a legal perspective, I do want, because they're all tenanted, they have tenants right now, all three units, mm-hmm. And I want to vacate two of them, one for myself and one for my immediate family. But to sweeten the deal, because we got it a lot under asking, we put a clause that I would assume the tenants, if they did not agree to leave after they've been served an N12. Is that a good move or not? I didn't firm up the deal yet. Should I negotiate the clause? How safe am I? I know the LTB is pretty tricky.
Yes. So actually, this is a very specific question again. So Sandra, actually, I'm gonna suggest that we take it offline as well, because there are other issues here that the people don't need to hear about. So I will send out an email or a message to the group or all the attendees via the chat with my email. So reach out to me there, and then we can have a chat about that tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
thank
no
you.
problem.
Okay. Barbara, you've got a couple here.
Yes. So who pays the legal fees? Excellent question. So typically in a purchase transaction or in a sale transaction, the client who has hired the lawyer is paying that lawyer. So if you're the purchaser, you've hired me, for instance, to represent you, you're going to be paying me. If you're the seller, you hire me, the seller's going to be paying me. So it's just really a matter of who is hired who. In the case of purchases where you also have a mortgage, nowadays, typically your mortgage lender will also hire your lawyer. So there'll be a joint retainer in that situation. And again, you will be paying that, but it also does save you that additional lawyer's fee because instead of using two lawyers, one for the bank and one for you, you now just use the one. So that's my quick answer there.
Okay, good.
And we have Nicole here with a live question.
Oh, one second.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Oh, sorry. I just realized you could hear me.
Yes.
Thank you for doing this. I'll ask a more general question. I am a graduate of I'm a student. Not a student. I'm self-employed now. I do have a student debt and a line of credit with some owing on it. But being self-employed, what's the best way to kind of set myself up in order to help with mortgage? Because I know it's harder being self-employed to do that.
Yeah. Great question. Was that Nicole you said?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, good question. So set yourself up to be self-employed. So a short answer for you here is this. I wouldn't look at this as when you're doing your tax planning, you know, and I give minimal tax advice. I know my way around it, but I do give minimal tax advice here. But when you're setting up your business from a tax perspective, it is in your best interest 99% of the time to set it up accordingly. So I'll give you an example. You have 75,000 gross income coming in, you have all your write-offs and you declare, typical business owner might declare 25,000 of income. Lenders want to see a 2-year average of that income that you're declaring, and that's what they're going to use. Now, a lot of self-employed people go, well, I'm going to declare 50 or 60 then. Well, in doing so, you're going to pay the tax man a lot more money. And by doing that, you might not even get the mortgage. So there are products out there, not in the A world, but in the Alt A or B world, where they cater to self-employed individuals. It's called common sense lending. And instead of using a 2-year average for your self-employed income, they will typically look for between 6 to 12 months of bank statements. And then they'll just add up all the deposits and they'll formulate their own opinion on what you're earning. And so that's how I would do it. I would not address the income that way by trying to line up a what if scenario, because by the time you do that, regulations could change and you could have just paid the tax man an extra $40,000 that you didn't need to. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Good question. Get that all the time. Okay, so let's power through some of these. I think, Barbara, I think you're up here.
Okay, so yes, in regards to number 9, what happens if there is a big issue that the homeowners knew but didn't disclose that can cost you a lot of money? So example, let's say there's a leak somewhere, something in the foundation they knew about and didn't disclose. So I would say there's a few factors to come into here. So typically you're going to have a home inspection, and this is where things like this would be revealed. And this is part of the conditional portion of the agreement. So I would say that even if they did know or didn't know, you are going to find out, and you can negotiate the contract down or have them pay it at out of their own expense. So that's where I would say you could do that. If it does come to closing and you find something is absolutely contrary to the agreement, then yes, you would possibly have a litigation matter on hand, and I would refer you to a litigation lawyer.
Good answer. Okay, I have one from Angela here. If I'm not a first-time home buyer, how much do I need to put down? Angela, you can take advantage of the 0 down if you qualify. 5% down is pretty typical. So you do not have to be a first-time home buyer. So you can technically own a property today, turn that property into a rental if you like, pull out 5% equity out of that property and go buy another property. But the key is you have to move into it. If you're putting under 20% down, you must move into the property. Okay, I hope that answers your question. There we go. Okay, next one. How does a mortgage broker help in getting the best rate? And other than the 6 banks, are there any other mortgage providers who can provide a better rate and are reliable? So Akil, thanks for the question. Mortgage brokers help. Think of it like Costco. We buy in volume. And so in buying in volume, we get access to certain rate specials at certain times, as well as very good products with less small print. And so are there going to be lower interest rates out there? Well, sure. Today there might be, tomorrow there might not be. We might have the lower rate. But I caution you this: if lowest interest rate is your only important variable you're looking for, there's lots of sites online where you can just go and find kind of like a no frills done for you mortgage and take a low rate. But if you want someone that's going to hold your hand through all the small print, answer the cell phone when you call, and present you with opportunities to save money in the next 5, 10, 15 years on your mortgage you're signing up for, then you need a mortgage broker. Okay. And the second part of that is, are there other mortgage providers who can provide a better rate than the big 6? Yeah, there's probably 25 or 30 A lenders. They all have different products at different times to fit different people. Are they all reliable? Absolutely, they're all reliable. A lot of them are publicly traded companies. And some of them are Schedule A banks as well. You just don't hear about them because they're not brick and mortar. They don't have an office you can walk into, but they do one thing and they do it really well. They do mortgages. They're called monoline lenders. There's MCAP Financial, Merrick's Financial, RMG Mortgages, First National. So every time you call them, every person you speak to, all they know is mortgages, and they are not trying to cross-sell you on anything else. Okay, there you go. Knocking these out.
Yes.
Okay, we are home property where I own a husband. Can I own a second property just by myself? Okay. I can answer that. Is that kind of in my wheelhouse too? I got that one.
Sure. Keep
Yeah.
going. You're on a roll, buddy.
I'm on a roll, baby. Okay. So here's the question from M and N. We are homeowners for a property where I and my husband are equal owners. Can I own a second property just by myself without having a cosigner? So the easy answer is yeah, you can. Absolutely. If you can qualify for it, then there's some estate planning behind the scenes. You need to make sure it's structured correctly, and tax components. But if you want to own a second property, say a cottage or a rental property without having a co-owner, sure, the banks or the lenders will step up and give you that mortgage, assuming you can qualify. Okay? That good?
Yeah.
I think
Sounds good.
That sounds good.
Okay, so can legal firms like KPA operate entirely online to support real estate purchases, or will there be some in-person contact required? Excellent question. Right now, with COVID-19 concerns, some of the banks are refraining from requiring in-person identity verifications. So typically what your lender will require is that when you meet with the lawyer, you are meant to meet with the lawyer because the lawyer will verify your identity. COVID-19 has made that somewhat difficult. Some banks do still require it. They require you to meet your lawyer in person. Some banks don't. So it just depends on who you are getting a mortgage with at this point. But yes, I have done real estate purchases entirely online.
Nice. Okay. Okay, this is a mortgage question. Seemed to be the theme here. Or deep offline conversations with Barbara. So the question is, I have $50,000 left on my personal line of credit. Can I use all the amount for down payment? Absolutely. I'll caution you this though. There are 2 types of lenders. Most lenders are going to look at that and they're going to want to include 3% of that. So a $1,500 a month payment in your liabilities. So that may or may not affect your ability to get an approval. There are certain lenders though, you need to know who they are, but there are certain lenders that will calculate that on a different rate. So the carrying cost on that line of credit, if it's going to be in probably the $175 a month mark, but you can't use that. But there are certain lenders, and I did a calculation really quick here, they will calculate that as a $290 a month payment, which probably shouldn't impact your approval that much, but a $1,500 payment absolutely would in most situations. Okay. If you want to know who that lender is, please reach out. Aha. Gotcha.
Yes, I like it. Cliffhanger. Okay. So yes, I didn't fully understand number 8. My apologies. So that was the one on miscalculating closing costs. So if I'm not clear, I wasn't clear. I apologize. So what I mean by that is a lot of first-time buyers or purchasers, even not a first-time buyer, are always surprised when they see the number that they're required to pay on closing, because it's not just what you deposited plus the mortgage. There's going to be adjustments to the purchase price based off property tax and common expenses if you're buying a condo unit. If you are getting a loan or if you're getting loan insurance, if you put down less than 20%, and Ryan can confirm this, you typically have your premium for the loan insurance that's going to be paid over the lifetime of your mortgage, but you have to pay the taxes on that loan insurance the day of closing. So that usually gets taken off the mortgage or advancement. Another factor is the disbursement. So that is a general comment because it does include title searching, and title searching is the pulling of title, so it's pulling a parcel register. It's looking at other instruments that are registered to see if there's any easements on title, to see if there's a charge registered, which is a mortgage. Maybe there's a construction lien. So it's these types of things that each item adds up. We also search to see if there's any judgments against the owner or you that could be attaching to title. So say someone lost a court case and they owe $20,000. That's attached to their name, but if they own a property, that can attach to the property. So those types of things add up to us pulling title and creating greater disbursements. This is all for your benefit, however, because our main goal for you as purchasers is to get you good title. You don't want to take possession or ownership and then 2 months down the road, you find that there's a lien on title because the previous owners hadn't paid utilities for 6 months, or had they rented a hot water tank and they never paid it. So those types of things is what the disbursements adds up to and what's it's meant to deal with. Home insurance, you have to get through your insurance provider. Title insurance, again, I can't really provide a quote because it does depend on the amount of the purchase price and also the mortgage you get. HST is just the HST that attaches to the legal fee and disbursements. And land transfer tax, as I showed you before, if you check out the KPA land transfer tax calculator on our website, you can search that in Google. It'll outline the additional costs that you have to pay on closing.
Okay, good answer. Thanks, Barbara. Another mortgage one here. We've got getting a loan for the zero down payment program. Will that reduce the amount a bank can approve for a mortgage? Yeah, potentially. If you're with a 5% down payment, if you qualify for $400,000 and now you're saying, hey, I'm going to go borrow that 5% now. Absolutely. Depending what the carrying costs on that loan is going to be, it will impact the amount you're pre-approved for. It could bring it down 3.25, 350. So that's something you definitely have to factor in. It needs to be known upfront that that's the case. Okay. Okay. Do you recommend paying 20% down payment or 15% down payment with PMI? Not sure what PMI is. I'm not sure if I should know what PMI is. So that I can save some cash. So that's a good question. I'll tell you this. With the 20% down, there's no mortgage insurance premium, meaning that CMHC is not going to charge you a one-time premium. If you decide to put 15% down, and let's say that saves you $20,000 out of pocket that you have in a bank and it's a nest egg and you feel warm and fuzzy, it comes with a cost. That $20,000 you just put aside, well, now you're paying a couple percent premium, and that's going to be put on lump sum right onto your mortgage. You're going to pay that back over time. So if you have a $400,000 mortgage, all of a sudden you're paying an extra $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 plus interest on that over time. So you got to ask yourself, how bad do you want that extra $20,000 in that example? Because you're going to be paying $10,000 for it. So that's a high interest loan, I'd say. But having said that, a lot of people, it reduces a lot of stress in their life, having that money in the bank account, or they want to furnish the property. I would highly suggest you look at other ways. You look at family members that can gift you the 5%, keep that other money in reserve. Then you could put a home equity line on the property. And as you start paying down the property, that money you're paying down is going to become available in the home equity line. And you could use that money to then pay back the family member. Okay. I just don't want to give CMHC money if you don't have to. Okay. There you go. Lambros.
Hey, I got a question. Awesome. So what are your thoughts about purchasing a property outside the GTA now that online remote work is becoming more accepted? Again, that's a great question. And I think you're onto something here. not sure what your name is, but you may see companies now find out that, you know what, we don't need to have all this space. We don't need to have all these people in our offices and allow more people to work from home. That means maybe the demand for downtown living is going to go down. We don't know. It's hard to predict. And if you can work remotely, it depends on your lifestyle. You know, do you like to live in the country? I know I enjoy the country. I would love to have a state outside of the GTA, a lot of land. That would be great. I mean, some people like that, some people don't. So A, it depends on your lifestyle, and B, it depends on who you work for. It depends on your company. If you know, they're going to allow you to work from home on a full-time basis, or maybe you're on a part-time basis and you still have to commute a little bit. So now you got to factor that in. Can I commute 2 days a week? Is that okay? Or you can put up with that, or something like that. So again, that's kind of a very specific question. So, I mean, I'd love to discuss it more with you offline, by all means.
Great.
Okay.
Another one for you, Lambros.
Oh, perfect. Hi, Lambros. How can I negotiate a deal after the inspection didn't come back as expected, i.e. possible foundation issue? Can I suggest we split repair costs? Yeah, I mean, Sandra, great question. You can certainly suggest anything. This is where a good agent comes in to, again, fight for you, to work on your behalf. Why should you split the costs when maybe they can negotiate the seller pay for it, or maybe they deduct some money off the purchase price? If this is an issue that was not known when you put in the offer, then by all means, you have a bargaining position. However, be careful, because if they provided you with a pre-listing inspection that had this information in there already before you put the offer in, then there's not really much you can do, because you should have read that report before putting in the offer, and that's why they provided it to you. So there's all kinds of ways this can go, but the bottom line is have an agent that's going to fight for you, and that's going to give you good advice and be able to negotiate a fair resolution to that issue.
Great answer.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I'm just trying. Okay. Mortgage question. If I buy a house for my daughter, pay the down payment, and be responsible for the mortgage, sorry, this is for Angela, do I have to be on title? So there's a couple things here, Angela. This is a difference between a guarantor and a cosigner. And so most lenders, if there's a credit issue, then a guarantor, you can give the money, you can gift the money, and you're on the hook for the mortgage, but you do not have to go on title. If you need income to put the deal together, and that's the reason you're being asked to help out, then you need to go on and cosign, and you will be asked to go on the mortgage and on title. Okay, so that's give you a little difference between the two there.
On that note, though, I just wanted to add, if you are going on title, there are legal routes you can take to deal with your ownership interest.
Yes.
So I would recommend speaking with a real estate lawyer about that.
Correct. You can be a 1% owner.
Yes, you can. Or you can do a bare trust agreement.
Yes, you can. So,
there we go.
It's like we had the questions planted. Okay, moving on. So here's one from Anonymous. Go figure. I've heard that mortgage brokers will persuade clients into arrangements with organizations that give them some kind of additional incentives or kickbacks. How does the mortgage broker make their cut? And are there lenders that will offer brokers a better deal to encourage brokers to send clients their way? Okay. So the easiest answer is this. We get paid on average 1% of the mortgage amount. So if it's a $500,000 purchase, $400,000 mortgage, we on average will make $4,000. All right. It's pretty public information. Now there are certain lenders that come out with certain rate specials and incentive specials behind the scenes that you don't know about. But it's nothing game changer. It's like, we'll give you 1.1% or 1.2%. And so I personally have never met a mortgage broker that pushes someone to one direction, because it's very short-sighted. They're not playing the long game. And in all reality, what's $400 how's that gonna, impact anybody? So I don't know anybody, and I know a lot of mortgage brokers, hundreds of them. I don't know anybody that would go by that best practice. And if you do, then I would run for the hills. Okay, that one's answered. Lambros, this might be rent to own.
Yeah. So Manish is asking, any suggestion on rent to own house? Is it good or bad? Personally, and everybody's going to have an opinion on this, but personally, I'm not a fan of rent to own because there's so many issues that can go wrong or sideways with it. You know, I'm not sure if you're asking from a seller's perspective or from a buyer's perspective, but let's say you're asking from a buyer's perspective, and what's going to happen here now is you're going to pay a certain amount of rent. Let's say, you know, $2,000 rent, which is low these days. Actually, it's going to be much higher than that. It's probably say $2,500, and then on top of that, you're going to have to pay an additional $500 or $1,000 or whatever it is per month towards a deposit to purchase that price maybe a year from now. So now you're paying $3,000 minimum, maybe $3,500, maybe more, I don't know. But again, it goes back to not being able to predict the market. So, and you've already negotiated a purchase price, you've already negotiated a deposit, you've already negotiated everything. So let's say if now the market goes down, the house is worth less, you know, now you're paying that amount. So, I mean, the opposite is likely true as well. I mean, if the prices go up and then you're buying it at a certain price, which you negotiated a year or so ago, but let's say your circumstances have changed. Now you no longer want to live in that community. Let's say you've changed jobs or something like that. So it's hard to predict what's going to happen a year from now. So instead of doing a rent to own, if you need to rent, then go ahead and rent. But instead of paying that money to the seller, just put it in a strong investment, let it gain some interest. And now when you're ready to buy, say a year from now, then you can go ahead and buy whatever you want. You want to buy that house, if it's still available, by all means. You want to buy another house, buy something else. But I would not commit, personally, I would not commit that far out to purchasing a property.
Okay.
All right.
We've got a credit rating question. Akil, you're back with more. Let's do this. What is a good credit rating? Good credit rating would be, an average credit rating is 680. Anything over 700 is considered good. That's short answer. How does it impact the mortgage rate? As of now, basically, if you want 680 or higher and you can deal with an A lender, we've gotten deals done as 625, 605 with A lenders. It doesn't impact the rate. It's a matter of if they will actually work with you. Okay. But what we're seeing trending is a sliding scale coming out where certain lenders are testing it out, where if you have a better credit rating, you might get 0.05% off your interest rate, you know, an 800 versus someone with a 680. Okay. So that might save you $17, $24 a month, something like that. Okay. So as of now, it's not there. And 680 is the average interest rate, or sorry, credit rating. Okay. What key factors determine if you get pre-approved for a mortgage? Oh man, we could talk all day, but we'll just touch on a couple things. So obviously credit rating, without a doubt, especially in today's environment. Down payment, where'd that down payment come from? They're going to want to know where it came from. Can you service the debt on that if it came from something you're borrowing? Was it gifted from family members? Do you have to pay it back? And then the biggest one out of everything is going to be your employment. And so if you have, I'll give you an example here and then we'll move on. If you have $1 million sitting in the bank account and you have a $10,000 a year pension, it's going to be very, very, very hard for you to get a mortgage because the lenders, all they care about, they don't care about your net worth because that money can be gone tomorrow. They just want to know that you can service the debt, the mortgage payment, the property taxes, the heating. And so if you've got $80,000 income and no savings or minimal savings, they'd rather give you a mortgage than the person with the high net worth. So employment is very, very important. So we've got credit, down payment, and employment. Okay. M&M says more detailed session on investment properties. Working on it. Working on it. Trying to get through this one, M&M. Ottawa. Okay. I think this is kind of a mortgage thing. I'm from Ottawa. How much should be the safest down payment for the average $300,000 listing? This is all relative. You know, if you have $15,000, that's all you have. Well, that's safe. You're going to put that money in the property. You're going to be charged a 4% premium from CMHC. You're going to start with 1% equity in the property, but you own a $300,000 investment. If you have $60,000, That's 20%. Then you put that in. So I will tell you this, if you've got a lot more money, you've got 100,000, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm going to throw all 100 in. I would look at putting 20% down and just seeing what the difference is in your budget, because every $10,000 you don't put into the property costs you about $40 a month. So I always say to clients, would you rather have $20,000 in the bank account and make $80 more a month per pay, on your mortgage payment? You know, that's going to mean different things to different people. Okay. So you don't have to put all your savings in if you don't like. Oh man, loaded questions. Okay. Michael, we've got, where do you see interest rates heading for mortgages? The prime lending rate, I don't see going up anytime soon, but I will warn you, I have been wrong before. Fixed interest rates, from all key indicators and all experts that are far better experts than myself at predicting interest rates, because it's like the stock market. They're telling us that interest rates are going to hold steady below the 3% mark for quite some time, saying a year or two. Okay. What are common what outs in contracts for buyers from sellers? I'll let you take that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, what outs? I'm thinking you're referring to conditions that you can use to get out of the contract if you decide you don't want to go with it. So typically I see conditions for getting financing. Also can be conditional on a home inspection and appraisal from the bank if they want to send in their own appraiser. Those are these two standard ones that I see. If there's an issue with the property, for instance, say something needs to be repaired, sometimes that's also added into the agreement to say this needs to be fixed by a certain date. Otherwise, the agreement's null and void. But yeah, I'd say the main ones is the refinancing and the home inspection. And sometimes I do see the condition for legal review, which I do recommend.
Good answer. And then third part of that, Michael, sneaky Michael, putting 3 questions in. I like it. When should liquid cash be available and how much typically for purchasing a home? Really, once again, it's all relative. You do need liquid cash at some point to purchase the home. And so if the money is overseas, it has to be in a Canadian bank account for 30 days. If this money is in RSP, well, that's not really liquid until you enter into a purchase contract, and then you can take that money out, but it must sit in an RSP for 90 days. And so when should liquid cash be available? You know, typically a week before closing, maybe even closer, but Barbara's probably like to keep those stress levels down. A week before closing is when I'd say you'd have to have the remainder of your down payment and closing costs minus the deposit you already had. You're going to have that liquid and ready to go in a certified check. Okay. Moving on. Akil is back. Okay, I'm going to fly through this one. Is there a detailed checklist of documents that are required for mortgage other than employment letter, bank account statements, and income tax returns? Yes, it really depends what you are. I'll give you the down and dirty here. If you are an employee, you are a salaried employee, pay stub. That's all you need right now. Letter of employment you're going to need, but it has a 30-day expiration date on it. Okay, so you don't need to supply that in the pre-approval, but you will need to supply that when you purchase a property. If you are self-employed, if you are a sole proprietor, you are going to need 2 years T1 generals with statement of business activities, last 2 years NOAs, which is your notice of assessments, and a business license. If you are incorporated, you are going to need 2-year personal tax returns, T1 generals. You are going to need personal notice of assessments. You're going to need your articles of incorporation, which prove that you were incorporated and you have been for a minimum 2 years. And then you're going to need 2-year either unaudited financial statements for your company or a T2, which is the equivalent of a T1, which is your personal. T1 is your blueprint of your income tax. The T2 is your business return. Okay. And then bank account statements, you're not going to need those up front. Some lenders ask for 30-day history of your down payment funds and some ask for 90. It really depends, but it's in that range, 30 to 90 days. You're going to need a void check. You're going to need, if the funds are being gifted, you're going to need a signed gift letter. And you're going to need a signed, if you're purchasing something, a fully signed purchase agreement, and then all of your waivers signed off on, so your condition of financing and so forth, and home inspection and whatnot. So that's a down and dirty list there, and it doesn't really waiver too much from there. If you are separated, you're going to need a copy of your separation agreement because they're going to need to prove that you don't have child support or alimony going back and forth either way. Okay. There we go. Akil. Okay. If my spouse and I are buying our first home together, can we combine our RSPs for a down payment? Absolutely, you can. You can put $70,000 towards that. You could take RSP loans, which is a way of generating a down payment with having no down payment. But you can absolutely do that. So in that scenario, you could put up to $70,000 in.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll take this one if you guys don't
You
mind. Yeah. So Anonymous is asking, is the home inspection mandatory? Short answer, no, it's not mandatory. It's up to the buyer if they want to do a home inspection. My long answer is highly recommended, however. I mean, unless you're planning to gut the property or tear it down, you may want to get a home inspection. So if we're, you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy a property, let's say it's 500 at a minimum, what's an extra, a few $100 for the home inspection? So that's the way I see it. So it's definitely recommended, but not mandatory.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Lambros.
Okay. Akil, man, you're peppering us here. I love it. That means you're engaged. If one withdraws the RSP, does that withdrawal get added to my total mortgage capacity? I'm a little confused by the question, but I would say, yeah, I'm assuming here you qualify for 400,000. You've got your down payment somewhere. You're saying, hey, if I pull out 30,000 from RSP, can I add that on? If that's what you're talking about, absolutely. Now all of a sudden, either your mortgage gets decreased by 30,000 or your borrowing power increases by 30,000 in that scenario. Okay. Okay, can we borrow from spousal RSP for first-time homebuyer without the 3-year tax withdrawal rule? I'm going to be honest, Lippy. I'm not entirely sure here. I've got an opinion on it, but I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. I don't know, Barbara, if you have any opinion on that.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not positive on that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't give you advice on that. But you know what? I know people that do. And so I will find people. So if you send me an email, ryan@wileymortgages.com with that question, I will have an answer to you within hours. Okay? How's that? That sounds good.
Okay, so this is from John. So I believe you asked this earlier in the chat, John. If you're looking at buying a rural property in the GTA, what is the additional expertise required from the dream team? While it shouldn't matter for a mortgage broker, is there any impact when choosing a real estate lawyer? So to answer that first question, I believe you clarified that it's not a cottage property, in which case you should be fine with a real estate lawyer that practices real estate typically at least 80 to 100% of the time. And if they have good experience, like they've worked for a few years, if they're easily accessible, you should be fine with that lawyer. So if the house you're buying, this is going to definitely be a Ryan question. The house you're planning to buy requires major renovation, fixing roof or replacing oil tanks with gas furnace, etc. Can you include the additional costs into the mortgage? I believe you can, but it's a certain type of mortgage. But Ryan, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So to some degree, so John, I tell you this: if you're putting more than 20% down, let's say, I would look at first doing that, putting the minimum down required, and then using those additional funds for the renovations. But there is a purchase plus improvement product that allows you to borrow funds and package it up into the mortgage. It works for some people. It doesn't for other. There are restrictions on it. Typically, you can borrow up to 10% of the value of the home, and on exception, and up capped at 40,000. And on exceptions, I've seen it done 60, 65,000. So in a $500,000 property, technically you can only put $40,000 in renovation loan into the mortgage. Let's say you got that up to 50. What the lender would do is they would do this. They would take your $500,000 mortgage. They would put $50,000 on top of it. So it'd be as if you paid $550 for the property. So think about it like this though. If you're putting 20% down, now your down payment just increased by an extra $10,000 because your purchase price on paper is now $550. So you're only going to net out $40,000. Okay. So you have to be cognizant of that. You have to supply renovation quotes up front in financing. The lender has to sign off. An appraiser has to go in and say, hey, you're not just buying a $40,000 chandelier. You are buying something that's going to add value to this home. And we like that. Then you're going to have to fund it on your own. So that's a big one that people miss. You have to fund all those renovations on your loan, line of credit, Home Depot, don't pay for 12 months. You're going to have to do something. And then you're going to 90 to 120 days to finish the renovations. And then you're going to have to get an appraiser to come back in and inspect the work that was done. And it has to be the work that you submitted up front that you were going to do. They don't care who does the work. You can do it all yourself and pocket the money if you like. They really don't care. They just want to make sure that the home is worth more than it was when you started based on the renovations you were doing. And then if that's the case, they will then, we'll write the lender and let them know it's been done, show them the report, and then your lawyer will release the funds because they're typically actually, I don't know, are they held in trust? I'm not sure, like an escrow, Barbara, I'm not sure if
Yes,
that's 40,000.
they'd be held, yeah.
So, and if you're looking for major renovation, because you mentioned major, fixing roofs, oil tanks, gas furnace, you could get all that done in 50,000 and then some. But if you're talking big stuff, you go down to a commercial loan, construction loan. And I tell you this, I've done over 1,400 mortgages. I have never done a construction mortgage because they're very, very hard to do. So I say you walk right into a bank or you talk to the developer or the contractor and you get their contact and you go in and they'll walk you through how to do that. I would not rely, very few people actually know how to set those up. Okay.
I just want to add something to Barbara's answer for John. It's not just the real estate lawyer that you should be familiar with the area, but it's so important to have a local agent also. If it's a rural property, so different from an urban property. There's things like septic tanks, there's wells, there's all kinds of things that you need to be aware of, and a local inspector as well that's familiar with, are there termites in the community? There's just so many things that are specific to that local area that you need to have an expert in that local area. And the good thing with most agents, well, I'm not sure how they operate, but I have a whole network of agents all across rural properties, all across the province, the country, et cetera. So definitely if you have an agent that you trust, but they happen to be in the city, they may have someone that they can refer to you for that rural property. So reach out to your agent, reach out to someone that you trust, and they can hook you up with the right person or people.
Okay, that one, I think I'll let you two handle this one.
All right. So let's see. Anonymous has asked, you mentioned having a dream team. How do you assess who can be a part of that dream team? What should you look for in a real estate lawyer, agent, etc.? So I will tackle the first portion. So what you should look for in a real estate lawyer. As I kind of alluded to before, I do recommend you go with a lawyer who practices real estate at least 80 to 100% of the time. There's a lot of things that can pop up, and someone who does this day in and day out, they're going to be more inclined and more efficient at handling things that appear, and they're also going to be able to proactively understand that things can happen and be prepared for it. That's, I think, a big factor in it. Also, you want someone that's available. You want to be able to reach them. You don't want them going off the grid. You want to be able to call or email or text and get them to answer. So I would say that would be a big factor for your real estate lawyer, someone who practices in it predominantly and they're available for you to reach.
Yeah, 100%. I would echo that for the real estate agent as well. It's so important that the real estate agent is available full time. I mean, there's a lot of part-time agents in Toronto, and that's fine. If that's what you do, that's what you do. But if you want to buy a property, especially in a hot market like Toronto, and your agent's not available because they're driving an Uber or they're doing something else part-time, how are they going to be looking out for you, 100% of the time? So you need a full-time agent, somebody that you trust. So look for referrals from other people that you trust, like family members or close friends that have used an agent and they recommend somebody. Great. If you don't know anybody like that, check out Google reviews, check out all kinds of review sites for agents. And then at the end of the day, just interview a couple if you want to see who you mesh with, see who you think you can trust at the end of the day, and somebody's going to look out for you.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay. This is a mortgage one. So I just graduated from dental school and I have a job in line with annual income of 200,000. Congratulations. Do I qualify for $1 million property? What's the most important factor in seeking a mortgage? Is it annual income? Okay. So do you qualify for a property? All things being considered, I don't know a lot about your situation, but the numbers would work on that depending on what sort of debt load you're carrying. And there are programs, I think I texted you earlier or messaged you earlier, there are programs, specific programs for dentists, professionals, doctors and whatnot. So lenders would absolutely love your business, and that income will qualify for $1 million property, assuming credit, down payment, all that stuff checks out. What's the most important factor when seeking a mortgage? Well, I would say someone who's going to give you money. I would find that would be number one. And then really after that, it's sort of jukes and jives with yourself. If you have a $200,000 job, I think what would be most important to you would be someone that's kind of there, that's going to handle it, that you trust, that you can call, they're going to pick up the phone, another professional in their line of work. And so for other people, there's going to be other factors. And so for you specifically, I can only speak to that. You're earning $200,000. You don't have a lot of time. You can afford to have someone there that's going to kind of be more of a concierge type style, mortgage broker, real estate agent, lawyer. Okay. Is it annual income or other factors? Yeah. Income, credit, down payment, and where the property is. Okay. Lenders, obviously they're putting their neck on the line. They need to secure their asset. They want to know where the property is. They must like the property. So there's 4 main factors. Okay. What part of monthly payments of the mortgage on primary residence is tax deductible annually? I mean, if my mortgage is going to be higher than current rent, am I offsetting somewhere? Sorry, I'll answer the first part because I don't understand the second part. What part of my mortgage, my monthly payments of the mortgage on primary residence is tax deductible annually? None, zero. It's a tax-free investment. On the flip side, you don't get hit with capital gains on that property when you go to sell. In 99% of the instances, you don't. And then the second part of this is, if my mortgage is going to be higher than current rent, am I offsetting somewhere? Oh, I gotcha. So you're saying, hey, I'm renting now. If I'm going to go buy, because you're saying to go buy and I'm paying more. No, you don't get the benefit there. But where you do get the benefit is that your net worth is increasing substantially more than it is renting. And so take a $500,000 condo or property that appreciates. I know it's 7.5%. Let's use 5% per year. That's $25,000 of tax-free income you're earning year over year, and that starts compounding, and then you're forced to pay that mortgage down. So a mortgage on that, you're going to pay down probably $9,000, $10,000 a year. So in year one, you've earned $35,000 tax-free in that example. Where else could you put your money to earn $35,000 tax-free? So if the difference is you renting for $1,800 versus owning for $2,100, if you can own for $2,100 and your cost of your quality of life doesn't go out the window, that other $300 a month you're paying, that's where you make it up. That's $3,600 a month more you're paying than renting, but you're making $35,000 plus tax-free. Okay, so that's how you'd offset it. Is the initial $10K offer, so deposit, refundable if the bank rejects the mortgage? It is, as long as you have the right clause in place. So a condition of financing. So if you went firm, there's no condition of financing and the bank rejects it, well, then we start looking for other options, because that money you must close once you waive your financing, your home inspection, any other conditions that you have. So I don't know if either of you want to chime in on that as well, but there's a couple different ways that can go. But yes, technically, if you're protected with a financing condition or a condition of some sort, you will get your deposit back.
Yes. If you are within that portion of time, you can typically, if it's for your benefit, yes, you can typically capitalize on that. But again, it's case specific and it depends how the clause is written.
Yes. So get a Lambros.
And a Barbara.
Absolutely.
And a Barbara. Well, yes, the
Throw
clause.
myself in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What documents should be having after a deal is closed? I don't know. That's a pretty generic question.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could go into specifics, but typically after a purchase transaction or a sale or even a refinancing, depending on what you're doing, but because this is about buying, I'll talk about a purchase transaction. Your lawyer will send you a reporting letter. So in that reporting letter, you're going to get all the documents, legal documents that you signed with your lawyer, in addition to the mortgage documents that you signed with your lawyer. So you're looking at a mortgage approval. Sometimes they have the disclosure statement. You have your statutory declarations about what you plan to do with the home and how you're going to use the financing with your purchase part of the transaction. There's directions regarding title. So that's how you were telling the vendor that you want to take title. So we can get into specifics, but at the end of the day, within at least, a few weeks of your transaction closing, you should be getting a reporting letter with all of these documents. And I do recommend you keep those documents for 7 years.
7 years.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. What are the pros and cons of going fixed versus variable? Once again, we could do, a 3-hour podcast on this, but I'm going to just hit down and dirty once again. Fixed versus variable. So historically speaking, in the past 15 years, the variable rate wins. It always wins, and it has always won. Now, there's certain risk elements that come into it, and it's up to you to determine if you're comfortable with those risk elements. One thing I will tell you is this: if you are going to break a fixed mortgage, within 60% of Canadians break their mortgage within the first 3 years. So chew on that number. And if you do that, and it's a fixed interest rate, you are going to have a large penalty. It's typically in the 4 to 7% of your mortgage balance. Okay, so a $400,000 mortgage, that could be $16,000 to $25,000, let's call it, penalty. Now with the variable rate, which is why I love the variable rate, you have maximum flexibility. You can get in and out, you can break that mortgage. It doesn't matter if you break it in the 3rd month or the 50th month, it's 3-month interest penalty. So that equals out to approximately 0.75% of your mortgage balance. So in that example I gave you, $400,000 mortgage, it's roughly $3,000 penalty for 16, 20, 25. So that's a lot of things that gets missed because people like the fixed payment. And then there's other rabbit holes we can go down off that. We won't go there because we're getting tight on time here. But the variable rate gives you maximum flexibility, and the fixed rate gives you locked in for that 5-year term if that's what you sign. Okay. Do you pay fees to engage services of mortgage brokers? If you're dealing with A lenders, if you're an A client, no, you will not. If someone's charging you a fee, once again, walk away, run for the hills. If you are dealing with an alt A lender, no fees. If you're dealing with a B lender, it's like a home trust, Equitable Bank, depending on the amount of work, the B lenders pay a certain fee, but it's a smaller fee. So some mortgage brokers, myself included, depending on how much work we're doing and how much value we're adding, we will add a fee in, but we will only bring that fee. If we're getting paid 0.5% from the lender and we're putting a ton of work in, we'll just add in 0.5% to bring us to the 1%. Our goal is to earn 1% commission on all of our transactions. And then the private world, that's the wild, wild west. That's, Joe down the street lending you money, and there's no regulation. It's crazy town. You will pay fees. I highly suggest you do a lot of, you check review sites and you ask around because there's a little bit of shadiness going on there potentially. You will get charged a fee. It just depends how much you're going to get charged. Okay. A lenders though, you'll never pay a dime. You get mortgage broker in your corner for the life of your mortgage. Okay. Can I qualify for a mortgage while on full-time contract job? Yes and no. Not what you wanted to hear, but that is the answer. So yes, meaning if it's a renewable contract, if you've been in a contract for a year and it's renewable and we show history that you renewed that contract before, you've got a really good chance. If you've just signed a 6-month contract because you're, producing TV shows in Toronto and you're on 6-month contracts all the time, the short answer is no. But if you've got 5-year history of earning, and I just use 5 years as a number, of earning the same in that industry, sure, we can make a case. But likely it needs to be a 12-month contract. It needs to be renewable. But on a case-by-case basis, this is where using a mortgage broker who has relationships, they'll package up your scenario and they'll go shop it to their relationships. And if they're not going to get it done, no one's going to get it done. So there you go. On to the next. I think we did that.
Yeah, we did address that.
Okay. Okay. Lambros.
Awesome. So, so Tsitan, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is asking which season is the best time to buy. I'm looking for spring 2021. Tsitan, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not sure what's going to happen a year from now, but the way I see it, the best time to buy is when you're financially ready to buy and emotionally ready to buy, because owning a house, there's a lot of that goes into it, and a lot of stress involved as well, can be. But it's a lot of work, right? So if you have the time to take care of that house, and you have all the documents, you have all the paperwork, you're ready to go, then I say go ahead and buy it, because nobody knows what's going to happen a year from now. To time the market, not a good idea. Prices may only go up, right? So now you pay more, and you may be priced out of the market. So if you're financially ready to buy right now, and you're ready to work hard and then own that house, by all means, do it. Talk to Ryan, get approved, and then come see me, and we'll help you buy something. Yeah. Next question, I think I can handle this one as well, from Anonymous. Yeah. Is this a good time to sell with the COVID situation? Excellent question. Very tricky. Again, it depends on how comfortable you are with people coming into your house, right? I mean, normally it's a lot of work to keep the house maintained and clean, etc. Now it's extra hard, because you have to wipe it down, disinfect after every showing, right? So people come into your house, you're going to want to wipe things down, right? And then the next showing, etc. So if you can handle that part of it, then, you know, as far as the market goes, things are coming back right now. Things are selling. We're still seeing multiple offers. So in my opinion, it's still a seller's market. There's very low supply. So it's definitely a good time to sell, but it just depends on how much work you're willing to put into it. And how about buying right now? So again, from Anonymous, yeah, I would think now is as good a time as any to buy. Early in the year, January, February, and early March, the market was going out of control. We had, you know, multiple offers left, right, and center, and it was very difficult to get into the market. Now there's a bit less competition, because a lot of those buyers have taken a back seat and waiting to see what happens. So if you want to get into the market, now may be the opportune time for you. Again, as long as you're comfortable with the COVID-19 backdrop, you know, wearing masks and washing your hands and trying to avoid touching things and keeping your distance and all that, you know, fun stuff, is to make sure that you're safe and everyone else is safe around you. And you're financially ready, absolutely buy right now. The market's only going to keep going up.
Okay, we've got a tax return question. Okay, if I haven't filed my tax return for the last couple of years, will it impact me being able to purchase a property legally? Not sure what legally means, but yeah. I don't expect to owe anything to the government. I just haven't gone around to it. Wonder if it'll be checked. Okay, so if you're going with an A lender, if you are an employee, a salaried employee, no, technically we can get away with a pay stub and a letter of employment. If you're using a commission component, you're a salary plus bonus or hourly, and you need a 2-year component, we can get away with T4s. There's certain lenders we know that will only ask for T4s. So in those instances, you haven't filed your returns. Now, if you're self-employed, that's a different conversation. If you're self-employed and you haven't filed your returns, then A lenders you won't be able to deal with an A lender, but you can deal with B lenders. Certain B lenders, I know a guy who knows a guy who can tell you this, but certain B lenders will only ask for bank statements. The B lenders technically they don't want to get into the rigmarole of tax documents and whatnot. They're serving a purpose. They're situational based lending. So self-employed, no returns means you go with a B lender. On the A side, if you're salaried, hourly, you can get away with T4s, pay stub, letter of employment. Okay. I didn't even read this. I haven't read a bunch of these. Sorry. Is this one mine? Okay. I'm an occasional teacher who has been in consecutive long-term contracts, meaning I've been making a much higher salary than what the daily supply rate is. However, each June, my income becomes zero until this September comes around, and I find out whether I'm in another contract where I'll be working day to day. I don't pay rent. I have no debt. I would be first-time homebuyer. Do you have any chance of getting a mortgage approved, or have to wait till you're permanent? Your occasional consecutive long-term contracts. Yeah, so in an instance like that, there's a gray area there. It's going to see like how many years, like what's your 2017, 18, 19 income look like? Where are you now in 20? When are you going to know in 20 where you're going to be? And so lenders typically are going to want to see you in that permanent contract. But if you can show, 3-year history of you making $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, you got a fighting chance, especially if you can get to the 20% down payment. because as soon as you go less than 20%, CMHC triggers a bunch of guidelines. Okay. And then they're the ones running the show. They're the ones in charge, not the lender anymore. Okay. Okay, we'll do this one quick. When it comes to annual income, do they look for net income or gross income for mortgage application? If you're self-employed, they look at net income. If you are employee or hourly, they look at gross income. Okay,
Great.
that was quick.
Succinct.
Boom.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Zeton.
Yeah, very kind.
There you go.
Oh, Lily, Lily's asking a question. Do you guys provide service everywhere in the GTA? I'll answer first, I guess, because she's mentioning my name specifically here, especially you, Lambros. Are you specialized in a specific area? I work the entire GTA and the surrounding areas. I'm not sure where it is that you're buying. I'm assuming that you're thinking of buying, but if it is outside my area, as I mentioned a few minutes earlier, I have a whole network of trusted colleagues that I can definitely refer someone to you. Like, let's say you're in Ottawa, for example. I'm not going to go to Ottawa, but I do have an agent out there. I have somebody in Peterborough. I have somebody in Windsor. I've got some people all over the place. So depending on where you want to go, by all means, give me a call, email me, and I'll hook you up.
And as for myself, I can do everything online depending on the lender. So I can work outside of the GTA. I have gone to Niagara Falls and I can go to Barrie. Just depends on who's involved.
And for myself, we go everywhere. More specifically, Ontario, we go everywhere. We don't sit belly to belly with clients. We run everything digitally. We sign everything with e-signatures, and we do a lot of stuff over video. Okay, so as much as I'd like to meet you, it's just not going to happen. We will do this and be close. Okay. If I don't qualify for a mortgage and my fiance wants to go on title, but he has owned property before, does that mean my first time home buyer tax rebate won't apply? So there's a couple rabbit holes on this. Barbara,
Yeah.
you know the inner workings of this. I do if you don't.
No, yeah, so this is interesting. So you have a fiance. It's just a matter of whether or not you are a spouse within the meaning of the Family Law Act. So there's other requirements that come into play. So with a spouse, it could be that you are married or that you've entered into a contract. It could also be that you have cohabitated for 3 years. And if you have children, I believe it's that you've made a duty, like that you have a committed obligation to raise that child together. So whether or not that actually applies, it could go into it. If you've never owned a property before, then you'll be okay. I'm just thinking, how can I phrase this? If your spouse even couldn't, if your spouse doesn't qualify for the home buyer tax rebate, but you do, and you both plan to go on title, you could still get the rebate for your portion on that title. So you could take ownership in different ways. Now, if your fiance falls within the meaning of spouse, you both might be entitled to it. Just depends so long as while you're together, if he has owned property while you're together, he won't qualify or she won't qualify. But if they've owned it before you were together, they'll qualify. Ryan, maybe you can make that clearer, more succinct.
Yeah, no, you're going down the right path. Yeah,
Yeah.
You would get, if you structure ownership on title, obviously if it makes sense for everyone involved,
Yeah.
it could be 99%, your fiance could be 1%.
One.
You get
Mm-hmm.
99% of the land transfer tax rebate. Then when you inevitably get married, it's a matrimonial home, defaults to 50%. Barbara, I'm going that deeper offline.
Yep. No, that's okay. That's getting to family law there too, because even then matrimonial home doesn't automatically apply right away. But yeah, so I would say you'd have to just, it depends on whether or not your fiance would be considered a spouse at this point in time. And then again, if they owned a property while you've been together as spouses within that definition, then they wouldn't qualify.
Yeah. Okay. Good duo answer. Where should you start when you want to buy for clarity? Who do you go see first? Mortgage agent, real estate, or lawyer? I got to think, like, if there's just one answer, if you're looking for one answer where you start, nothing's going to happen if you can't get money.
Yeah.
Really. And if you don't know your budget and that, so I would go and get pre-approved, an actual pre-approval. I'm not saying you don't go talk to a realtor, because it's really good to, find the realtor, because that takes time, and to have them start sourcing out properties for you. But at the end of the day, realtors as well, Lambros, I think you'll back me up here. There's only so much energy you want to commit to a situation unless you know that someone's going to be able to follow through.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I wouldn't even work with anybody who hasn't been pre-approved. So the first thing I do is I send them to you for mortgage pre-approval. By all means, that would be the thing. So you can, doesn't really matter who you see first. You can go see Barbara first. You can see Ryan first. You can see myself first. But we will funnel you through to Ryan. I'm using Ryan's name, but because we're hoping that you use him. But at the same time, it has to be a mortgage broker. You have to get pre-approved. That's step number one. And the rest fall into play. And actually, just hold that thought for a second, because I do have something, a little gift for everybody after this session that kind of speaks to all of that. So just remind me at the end of the session. I'll bring that up again.
That's great.
Ooh, I like gifts.
Yeah.
I like gifts. Do I get Lambros?
Sure. If you
All
want.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Would I lose money because of COVID situation? Well, this is, in what context?
I think he's talking about selling, because it goes in hand with the next question. It says, if I were selling, would I lose money now?
I'll let you take that.
Well, again, short answer. Yeah, if it wasn't for COVID-19, you probably would have gotten a lot more for your house at this time, because we're in the middle of the spring market right now. Don't forget, had it not been for COVID-19, houses would have been, who knows how high up they would have gone. In February, we saw a year-over-year appreciation of about 16%. In March, that went down to about 10%. In April, it was at 0%. So the prices themselves haven't come down, but the appreciation has kind of softened, right? So in May, I'm not sure. My prediction is in May, we're going to see appreciation come up again, because there has been a lot of activity, and we'll find that out at the end of the month when the stats come out. But if you had sold in February, you would have sold for more. So, but if you have to sell, then you have to sell. Also, if you're buying at the same time, then it really doesn't matter, right? Because now, it's the same market that you're buying and selling in. So really, at the end of the day, it's going to balance out. So, I think that's the best answer I can give for this one.
Okay. Lambros, Muskoka.
Oh, yeah. All right. I would love to buy a house in Muskoka, by all means. And if I was to do so, I would definitely get a local expert, right? I myself, I'm not going to, I'm the first person to admit, I don't know much about, cottage properties and things like that, but I do have a very trusted friend that works that region. And by all means, I'd be happy to refer you to that colleague of mine who works exclusively that area.
It's Lambros with glasses and mustache. And
Groucho Marx.
Okay, we're getting nitty gritty. We got 2 questions left. Okay. I'm employed with an annual gross income. Then I get an annual bonus each January that's performance-based, so no fixed amount on my contract. How will a mortgage be determined? Just the pay stubs, or is the lender going to consider the annual bonus too? So great question. So this is what they're going to do. They're going to take, they're either going to take the higher of your current base now or a 2-year average, whatever's higher, because your income goes up. Obviously, you might have been given promotions and whatnot and raises. So they will look back today. If you were looking for financing today, they're going to look at your 19 and 18. And they're going to do a 2-year average on your T4s. And they're going to use that. And they're going to go either that or what your current base salary is without any bonus today. So they'll just take the higher of the 2. Okay. Also, is mortgage a 4.5 times income as rule of thumb? To be honest, I don't know. I know people throw out that stuff. I don't like seeing that because there's so many more moving parts behind on how to qualify a mortgage. I don't like to set people's expectations up that way with such a loose number. So haven't used that, can't comment on it, and I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. So I apologize. Okay. Last one, I think. Oh my goodness. We made Do lenders verify your employment status again before closing, even after you've been approved, especially during COVID times? So pre-COVID, so before COVID, no, unless you gave them reason to. And so they will call your employer, so you'll give your pay stub, letter of employment. Underwriters for the lenders want to get this off their plate. They will make a verbal call if they even call. They say they're going to call. Most of them should call. A mortgage broker should call just to make sure there's no fraud going on. So that'll be all handled. Then you might not close for 60 days. No, they're not going to go back. 99% of the time, they're not going to go back and look and confirm that. Now, during COVID, this is different because they've been reopening cases. And we talked about this earlier, where you were fully pre-approved pre-COVID, were fully approved. And now I think it was Maria, she was talking about this. They're coming back asking for paperwork. So I would be a little worried if something's happened or they put you on a temporary leave, because there's a lot of pressure coming from the lenders and their audit teams, breathing down the underwriters' necks and saying, hey, you need to, because what happens if they find out, if something goes off the rails here, all the commission gets clawed back from the underwriters. And they potentially, if they get 2 strikes on them, they lose their job. Like, that's really behind the scenes. That's what happens. So don't take it personally. They might absolutely call during COVID times. Okay. Especially if you're non-essential.
Yeah. And just to add to that too, I mean, even regardless of COVID, when you meet with your real estate lawyer for the Law Society, their identity requirements are to see that you are employed. So if you turn and say to your lawyer, I'm not employed, the lawyer is going to go, have you told the bank? And if you say no, like I mentioned before, usually the banks will hire your same lawyer as a joint retainer to save you funds, and your lawyer will need to tell the bank just as much as if the bank said something to your lawyer, they'd tell you. So that could affect your mortgage.
There you go.
Excellent. Good job, everybody.
All right.
So if anyone's still here, go to bed.
We still have
33
quite a good crowd.
participants. Yeah, that was great. No,
that's
thank
not
you so much
bad.
for
Not bad at all.
participating. So Lambros, you said you had a gift?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to share my screen here just real quick. And here we go. So this is something, a little gift that I'm going to give to all the participants tonight. I can email it to you. PDF version is called the Informed Home Buyers Guide. It's a great resource for any buyer, not necessarily first-time home buyers, but particularly for first-time home buyers because they haven't been through the process yet. And we kind of dumb it down here, 8 steps to finding the right home. So we kind of give you a step-by-step version as to what to do first. And look, what's first, well, at least second on the list here, getting pre-approved for a mortgage, right? So we talked about that. And so each step is then broken down. We give you details for everything, what kind of questions to ask, et cetera, et cetera. What a lot of people seem to like about this as well, at the end here, it gives you a couple of checklists, you know, things like packing like a pro, change of address, things you need to do, et cetera, all that good stuff. Okay.
That's a great resource.
It. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I like it.
And as I mentioned before, KPA Lawyers is offering or suspending suspending consultation fees right now. So if you do have a legal matter that you would like to discuss with a lawyer, we aren't charging for that hour, and we are doing consults over the phone, so you don't have to worry about any COVID-19 issues.
That's awesome. That's very generous, Barbara.
Yep, it's great.
Okay. Are we done? Or is this where karaoke breaks out?
Yes.
The after party.
All right.
All right.
Okay, so that's perfect. Thank you so much for everyone for participating. We really appreciated all of your questions. And if you have any questions after this that you don't like, that you want to just comment on, just know that we will be sending out an email with all of our information. So you can reach us that way. We are always available, and we'd love to help.
Do you want to throw up the contact screen one more time?
I can certainly do that. This is going to be fun. Presenter mode, F5. Oh, I'm doing it, guys. Okay. 5 moments. Okay, sharing screen. So this should be full screen, but it's not. F5. And then, don't mind me, everyone.
Uh-oh, sorry to put you on the spot.
There we go. I'm tech savvy.
Okay. There you go. Fantastic. Yeah, feel free to reach out, guys. I'd be happy to hear from you. Even if you just have a question, be happy to hear from you.
Likewise. Thanks for your time, guys.
Okay.
Thank
Have
you.
a good
Have a
evening,
good night,
everyone.
everybody. Stay safe.